So if you go to YouTube then. So it's offline. Welcome to XMiles Live trailer and pilot episode. So this is our first episode of XMiles Live, supported by Squirrel's Nut Butter UK. I'm your host Anthony Clark. I'm GB in England ultra runner, founder and part of the XMiles core team, and ambassador for Squirrel's Nut Butter UK. So we'll start the show. This is the first show. I'm going to do the show solo tonight. So welcome everyone, and it's great to finally get this idea off the ground so we can start the XMiles Live show. We've got a very simple format for the show. We will start with a catch up on what we did on the previous week. We will then talk about any product reviews that we are we want to show off and or maybe discuss on the show, and then we will hopefully have an interview with a special guest regularly to talk about people that are either taking on big challenges, being in completed races, and or just people of general interest and influences in the ultra running world. So we will kick off. We will kick off with a kind of a product review, but a launch of Squirrel Nut Butter Vegan from our show sponsors, as it's just arrived in the UK. So we are currently running a competition on Instagram with Squirrel Nut Butter UK. Where if you go on to Squirrel Nut Butter UK, you can look at Instagram post. They have a competition running where you can tag in 2 friends, follow their channel, and be in a chance for to win the tub of Squirrel Nut Butter Vegan, and that will be drawn on Monday, following the IAU 100k World Championships this weekend. So that brings us to the next stage of the show, where we're going to hopefully have an interview with a different person every episode. Obviously this week I'm doing the show solo, so it's going to be a kind of introduction to myself, and then we will talk about what I'm doing this weekend, and then in the same format as we were doing an interview, we will roll through the show. So first of all, a bit of a catch up. So this week sees me entering my final taper for the IAU World 100k Championships that are being held in Croatia on Saturday, the 8th of September. I've been really privileged to be selected for the GB team, to join 2 other team members, Lee Grantham and Rob Turner, in the men's team, and we are looking to all run good times and hopefully put GB in contention for medals in the IAU World Championships. So training has gone very well. I think the training period from May to September is it was quite a short window, coming back from a break after London Marathon, and before that racing in the Anglo-Celtic Plate 100k in March. Running 200k's in 1 year has obviously put quite a bit of strain onto the body. So easy May allowed us to kind of start again the training block, and that's been very successful. I was very fortunate to spend 2 weeks training in Saint-Foy in the French Alps with and meet up with my training partner out there, Gerdestein, who's a very well-known South African ultra runner. Come second in Comrades this year and won the Two Oceans Marathon. So we had a very good training block in France, training at altitude at Tignes, dropping down to Bourg Saint-Maurice, 800 meters, to do some of the longer sessions and some obviously hill work in the Alps. The great thing about the area obviously is that you can train at 21,000 meters in Tignes, and then 2,100 meters, sorry, in Tignes, and then you can drop down to 800 meters in a very close proximity to the base. So it gives us the ability to kind of mix up sessions and do different sessions in different areas. So the training is now come basically in the final few days, leaving for Croatia on Thursday. Last week was a definite cutback week, seeing my mileage drop from 120 mile weeks down to 60 mile weeks for last week. Still trying to get a few decent sessions in, mainly 1K interval reps to kind of just keep the speed in the legs. And then this week's been quite an easy week in comparison. Very easy running. Last 2 days we'll do some quick reps of 1K or so. This week tomorrow, just to keep the legs moving through, and then we head out on Thursday. So as part of my normal taper, in the final week I go through a carb depletion and carb loading phase, which allows me to kind of prepare myself and get myself into a position that that makes me feel ready to race at the weekend. Excuse me, I'll have some Pepsi Max. So the idea of carb depletion, even though scientifically has not been and is not proven to kind of benefit most people, and it's something that's more placebo and done out of routine, that kind of gets you in, that makes me feel like I'm in the right place to race at the weekend. So we're running with a 3-day carb deplete and then a 3-day carb load, where I basically I'm on 0 carbs now from Sunday to Wednesday. So I have my last carbohydrate meal on Saturday night. Sunday morning went out for a 14-mile run, steady pace run, and then basically since then I've been eating eggs, white meat, white fish and cheese. That kind of sums up my diet. There's no vegetables and no other form of carbohydrate in there. So there's hence the Pepsi Max and the occasional black coffee. That is the diet for the last 3 days. It's a very strange feeling. You definitely feel lacking of energy, and it's definitely kind of making me feel the weakest that I've been for a while, and I am sure tomorrow morning's 1K efforts are going to really make it struggle. But hopefully when we get through there, the carb load will make the body feel very alive, and we'll be ready to rock and roll on Saturday. So flying out on Thursday, carb loading starting on Wednesday. 2 reasons for this: just to, obviously I want to get 3 days of carb loading in me, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, before the race, but also getting on a plane with my immune system rock bottom after carb depletion is probably not the most sensible option for anyone that wants to not pick up any bugs on the plane going to a race. So the carb depletion and carb loading is going to basically hopefully get me to race weight on race day where I want to be, rather than loading on larger or putting on weight before the race. So I've dropped my weight from my normal racing weight for ACP 100k in March. I was 71 kilograms. I am now currently at 65, which is obviously a big difference from where I was. This is down to me doing my diet much stricter for this race, and obviously the training through the summer is how we burn more, but also I think the appetite's dropped slightly with the burn and the weather. And then I will probably go back up to 67 kilos following carb loading, which is where I've been for mostly the last 4 weeks of training. So it's dropped the last few days to get us to for the carb depletion. So then the carb loading basically is 1 gram per 1 kilo of body weight. So I'm planning to eat 650 grams of carbs for the next 3 days, get all carb rich, as they say, and get fully loaded up on the final few days of the taper, and we will be ready to go on the Saturday. Fingers crossed, nothing goes wrong. So yeah, we will finally get the GB kit out of the bag, get it on, and hopefully get the performance that we've been training for. So we will see. We will do another catch up on our next episode to talk more about how it's gone and where we are. So obviously very difficult to do a solo interview and talk to yourself, and wanted to kind of just give a introduction to myself so we know who I am for future episodes. And then what we will do on upcoming shows is obviously be having either one-to-one chats here at XMiles HQ, or we will be doing webcam interviews with different guests each episode, so we can have some guests from further afield, but also we'll put in some people that we know locally that we can talk about and introduce you to you all. So we will finish off the interviews where we will want to just talk about asking a couple of questions to our special guests, just to see kind of if we get any common themes on their nutrition and or their kind of how they prepare for a race. What they use in a race and their post-race indulgences. So the questions that we are planning to ask is going into the race, do you have any rituals or routines that you follow? So for myself, as we just discussed, that is carb depletion, carb loading, which is my ritual going forward. I also take beat it shots 15 days out from my A race, so that's something else that I do, which will obviously turn my wee red and as my and kind of make a bit of a change to the diet system. So yeah, we use the beat it shots 15 days out, and that's what we use just for A races, so not for any other races. Next question, go-to nutrition. What is my go-to nutrition for races? I use a bit of a mix, obviously, because of running a nutrition store business and not tied to any brands as an ambassador. I basically have the choice of what I want to use. So I tend to use Mountain Fuel Night Fuel as my final day's carb loading treat, and kind of just pick up a few high carb bars when I'm in the final days, and especially when I'm traveling. Cheer Charge bars are a favourite of mine. Battle Flapjack bars are another favourite. All very kind of dense bars that when you've eaten them you actually feel like you've had something to eat. I am a bit of a cookie fiend, so any homemade cookies I always try and take during final days of carb loading as well. But for racing, 100k racing is kind of a kind of got a very clear strategy where I use Tailwind Nutrition for my Raspberry Buzz for my fluid. I use a mix with that of Goo Chews and Cliff Blocks, and then Goo gels, and occasionally some other gels thrown in there just for a variety really, which I kind of mix in. So Goo gels are my go-to gels. I also use Talk gels because I like the new caramel latte gel, and I use the and I also like the new spring gels. The new spring gels, which are a lot fresher and made of real food, so they you get a different texture to them. You actually feel like you're eating real food rather than a more processed gel like the Goo gels and the other gels. And I will have salt tablets. So I use salt stick tablets that I will take from probably about halfway through the race. For halfway through the race, I will take a tablet, and then during the end of the tablet, I will take food as a precaution to kind of make sure that I'm hydrated and my levels are up. And then we go to post-race indulgences. What is it? Post-race indulgences. Well, I haven't had a beer since May, so I will be having a beer or two, or maybe more. I haven't had. I've very much restricted myself on my diet for the last couple of months. So I haven't had much red meat, and I do like a steak. Or haven't had any burgers and haven't had any cake of any choice. So mainly that sort of thing. But if I can, I will be having a beer and a steak very soon after we finish racing, or as soon as my appetite comes back. So I guess we kind of ran up the show, and I just wanted to kind of thank you for spending a little bit of time listening to me ramble on about my 100k coming up and what I'm doing. Also, just to kind of talk to you about the planned format for the special guest. So we XMiles, since we formed XMiles website, we basically had a blog series running, which was called Runners Profiles or Athletes Profiles. The idea of that was to get profiles written by people of their race experiences and focused on their nutrition. So that's the whole idea really of XMiles, to talk about different people about race experiences, event experiences or challenges, how they fueled for it, did it work, did it not work, and go forward. So we've had this series running on XMiles, and you can go to xmiles.co.uk, and there's a link at the bottom on the blog for Athlete Profile. And that profile was basically a written review of a race and reviewing the nutrition. So what we're trying to do now is we'll make that more interactive. We will run a XMiles live hosted interview and talk to those people instead of getting them to write a blog, and hopefully then we will have a better interaction, and then we will use the chat feature on YouTube Live to be able to get people to ask questions and interact a little bit more with the guests. So I think that's all we were planning to do. So to wrap up the show, thank you again for joining us. Please subscribe to the channel. Obviously, that's how YouTube works, and we want to. We'd like to get the subscribers up to share it. We also follow XMiles UK on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And with our show sponsors, Squirrel Nut Butter UK, if you can give them a follow on Instagram at Squirrel Nut Butter _UK, and on Twitter Squirrels NB _UK. It'd be great, and don't forget, enter their competition. It will be running until Sunday night, and then the draw will be made on Monday to get your hands on some anti-chafe style vegan from Squirrel Nut Butter UK, and thank them again. So I hope you enjoyed the show. We will schedule the next one. We will get a special guest in, and then hopefully we will move to a regular format of every week, fortnight, or once a month. We haven't quite decided yet, until we get all our guests agreed. But once all our guests are in, we will be back with you. So hope you enjoyed the show. Thank you very much, and we will see you soon.